Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome back once again to another edition of the movie Battleground. We are back here once again to continue our end of year 2022 tournament with the first of two matches this weekend. If you haven't already, last weekend the first two matchups were released: Chadwick Webb versus Jay Burns and Austin Howell versus Alan Shepard. No spoilers on those just yet. Check them out if you haven't, because the winners of those two matches will play each other. And the same thing this week. The winner of this match today and the match tomorrow will also play each other. Today we have an incredible one between the number 3 seed Calamity John Maher versus the Virtuoso Will Cohen. Both of these guys coming in with very different types of hype behind them. John coming in 3-0 with one knockout, undefeated. He's a heavy favorite to go far for a lot of people, and he is showing his stuff so far. And Will comes into this probably off the back of easily the biggest win of his career from the first round of the tournament. He's still smiling about it back there, so we'll go ahead and talk to him first. Coming in with a record of 4 wins, 2 defeats, and 1 knockout, he is the Virtuoso Will Cohen. Will, welcome back to the Battleground, sir. And yeah, let's talk about it. The last time that you were played was in the first round of the tournament. You took on the number 6 seed Sean Hunter, who, to remind people, previously made it to a tournament final the first time around, and then went on to go to a second number 1 contenders match. Unfortunately, neither of those worked out, so he found himself going up against you, and you knocked him out in what was probably the biggest defeat of his career and the biggest win of yours. How does that have you feeling coming into this?
You know, I went back and honestly, I went back and watched that match, and maybe I'm just being too hard on myself. I'm surprised I did that. I'm surprised I beat him alone, just let alone knocking him out. There was at least one question in there that I just had no idea that how I managed to get that win, but here I am. And now I'm going up against my friend, my colleague, pretty much, like, for lack of a better term, everything in this league. Like, we've had multiple comments where one of us can't show up without the other being involved in some way, shape, or form. And so naturally I had to bring him into this league, and lo and behold, now I have this match in front of us. So I'm trying to remain calm. My lucky shirt got really, really dirty, so now I'm hoping that this shirt will prove to be lucky today. And honestly, I'm just hoping that this is going to be every bit of the entertainment that I think this is going to be.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back for a moment while I speak to your opponent. Entering as the number 3 seed with a record of 3 wins, no defeats, and 1 knockout, he is Calamity John Maher. John, welcome back. The last time you were here, you also had a pretty impressive victory, and you described in great detail about how Uwe Boll likes to kill babies. Can we expect more of the same tonight?
Honestly, I'm going to say I hope to bring the same subject matter. I'm not as charged up to debate Will. You know, Will is a friend of mine. He is my trivia partner everywhere I go. We've been up and down that road together. So I don't feel the need to raise my voice or make fun of the fact that he's just here to have fun or say anything bad about him. You know, I'm going to keep this as civil as possible. I'm going to try not to raise my voice. I can't make promises because I'm half Italian, and you know how we get. You have an Italian last name, I imagine that you got that too. But yeah, I'm just looking forward. Like, these are great questions. Will made me have to watch romantic comedies, which I expected, and I made Will have to watch horror movies, which he expected. But like, I don't feel bad about it. You know, I'm excited to just be here and do it.
Well, I'm glad you don't feel bad about being here. I never hope that for a competitor. I never care if they do feel bad, but it's nice to know that you don't. So I will take that as a moral.
The last match came pretty close, but yeah.
Yeah, that got pretty ugly by the end. I'm pretty sure we got a strike from that. It was pretty ugly. Go watch that if you want. It's well, you certainly made Chris Diaz the most aggressive about killing babies that I've ever seen. So
Chris
I don't
Diaz
know how
yelled about lesbian Nazi werewolves. If you're into lesbian Nazi werewolves, Chris Diaz is your man. He will tell you all about lesbian Nazi werewolves.
I realize this is breaking the fourth wall of production, but he's actually watching the match in the back right now. He popped in right at that sentence. That was fucking beautiful. All right, I'm going to bring Will in. You guys won't see Chris. He's not here to judge, but he is here. So I'm going to bring you guys in. Let's get to the debate and see if it gets that wild once again. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is the first of 3 points wins the match. Each round of debate is worth 1 point. Winning the first 3 points in a row will be a victory by knockout. This is something both of these men have tasted. And after a 2-2 tie, we will go to the blind round should we need to, although that is every player's nightmare they hope to avoid. With that said, in terms of the 4 questions they actually had a chance to prepare for, they will get 60 seconds to open. They will get 2 minutes to expand, explain, stretch it out however they feel the need to. 4 minutes to openly discuss back and forth, getting their points, figure out what they need to try and win, and then they will get 60 seconds to wrap it up and finish their argument. Backstage, I have 3 judges in the form of Zach Shelton, Alejandro Hernandez, and Henry Sanchez. They'll join us on screen following the discussions, at which point they will deliberate. No, they'll deliberate beforehand, but they will say their deliberation and tell us who gets the point based on the arguments. With all that said, how are you guys feeling? Ready to go?
I'm feeling good.
All right. Well, John spoiled the strengths by saying somebody was forced to watch something and someone was forced to watch the other. So I guess we'll just fucking get those out of the way. Alexandre Aja is a director within the horror community that has made multiple different types of horror films. He's had success on the indie field a few years ago. He had success on the mainstream field with Krull, a movie about alligators in Florida that somehow it was like Sharknado but with a budget. I don't know how the fuck that movie got made, but he made it and it turned out pretty good. Shout out to Barry Pepper. That's not a movie that's being mentioned today, but we are going to have 2 more. The question is, what is Alexandre Aja's best film? All right, so with that said, John, behind the scenes, because you are the number 3 seed of the tournament, you were deemed the favorite going into tonight's match. You chose to go first on questions 2 and 4. So that means, Will, you are up first on the hot seat for this question. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the timer for you guys. Wish you both the absolute best of luck in this match. Will, the timer will continue when you begin speaking.
Alexandre Aja has a very batshit crazy filmography. I'm not going to lie. I looked through his entire filmography and trying to find the best one on here was kind of a challenge, but I think I found one that absolutely shows what this guy can do as a director, and I picked Oxygen. Oxygen is a very bizarre little sci-fi film where where the protagonist the entire time is just trapped inside of an oxygen tube, and her only companion is the AI running the oxygen tube. The longer this goes, the twistier it gets, the scarier it gets, the more paranoid it gets, and it's just a thrill ride from start to finish until an ending that just is beautiful and frightening all at the same time. Oxygen is the best Alexandre Aja film by far.
And time. Oh, I have to hit the pause button. All right, John, you will get your 2 seconds back. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Every great horror director needs a calling card, and Alexandre Aja has one of the greatest calling cards on his resume. I'm talking about High Tension. It's behind me. It's over there. High Tension. There it is, over there. This is the cornerstone of the new French extremity movement. Without High Tension, you don't have movies like Inside, Them, Martyrs, Frontiers, Raw, Titan. Xavier Gens, nobody knows who that is. Pascal Laugier, nobody knows who that is. Julia Decournau, nobody knows who that is. Alexandre Aja paved the way by making High Tension. High Tension was so good, it got a French release, it got an American release with a horrible dub, which hurt it, but they released it unchanged. Such a good movie. Wes Craven approached Alexandre Aja directly and said, I need you to remake The Hills Have Eyes, which was the movie he did right after High Tension. High Tension is a gory, fantastic thrill ride from beginning to end, showcasing his love of actual practical effects and tension.
And time. All right. John just listed off a bunch of names that people smarter than I will know, although I have heard of that Julia Chick. She made the movie about the girl who eats humans. Will, back over to you. You got 2 minutes on the clock.
If Alfred Hitchcock taught us anything, is that it's less is more. And Oxygen is absolutely the epitome of less is more. It's just one set piece virtually through the entire film, the entire 2 hour plus runtime, and it's only two actors interacting with each other in a very small environment. That is just amping up the tension. Everything that Alexander Aha may have done with high tension and learned from how to make something intense was completely amplified in tension and minimized in set design and everything like that, and the result is so much better with high tension. Yeah, Wes Craven may have liked it, but who didn't like it? Dean Koontz. Was approached because the plot for High Tension is so close to one of his books. Many people asked him if he was going to sue, but he said that the film was so devoid of any intellect, any intelligence whatsoever, that he decided he didn't want to have his name attached to a lawsuit, and he just said, "Fuck it, this can exist." High Tension is interesting. It's a. I can't actually defend this film. For as gory and as violent as it was, I actually was bored for the majority of this film, until an ending which made literally no sense. The killer who's stalking this poor girl the entire time, it turns out she is actually the killer, which when you go back and watch the film, this twist literally makes no sense, and so it invalidates the entire film. I'm sorry, Oxygen with its twist, yeah, you kind of see the twist coming, but at least it makes sense, and it makes the film beautiful at the end, and that's why Oxygen is better.
And time. All right, John, back over to you, sir.
It's weird that Will would say less is more in a movie that starts their twists 1/3 of the way through the movie and then delivers at least 30 twists from beginning to end. Oxygen suffers from a poor script. Alexandre Aja was not even the first director attached to this movie. It was Frank Calhoun. Andre Aja came in, and actually is the best part about the movie. Not even the Melanie Laurent wasn't even the original actress. Anne Hathaway was attached. Then Noomi Rapace was attached. Everybody walked away from this movie because the script was absolute garbage. Let me tell you what's wrong with Oxygen. First of all, it's not scary. It's scary if you're claustrophobic. It's scary if you don't like needles, and it's scary if you don't like rats. And the rats are just added in the effect that you're not maybe afraid of being claustrophobic or afraid of needles. Also, the solution that she comes up with is apparent halfway through the movie. A bunch of the pods are destroyed. You should divert the oxygen. Anybody with a brain knows that the oxygen should be diverted. Yet you sit there for 50 minutes while this person who's supposed to be a medical genius struggles with this obvious solution, just divert the oxygen to her pod. Spoiler alert, she survives. Second of all, this spaceship they're on is supposed to be the last thing, the way the human race is going to survive. The design of the spaceship is such garbage. All the pods are facing outwards and they fly it through an asteroid field. Yeah, sure, they can communicate with the people on the pod, but they don't have a way to navigate the thing. All of the plot makes zero sense. All of the drama is manufactured. High Tension, all of the problems with High Tension, Dean Koontz's problem with it, he saw the English dub of the movie. The French original version of the movie is perfect. Does the ending make sense? It does make perfect sense because it is an unreliable narrator. The main character has schizophrenia. That is why the movie does not even make sense. When you watch it through the lens of mental illness and the fact that she is a homicidal schizophrenic, the movie makes perfect sense. The gore in High Tension is legendary. The scene with the father's head being crushed through the banisters and crushed by the bookcase is, I do not know how they did it. Meanwhile, we know Aja is great. We know Aja did that. We know he did The Hills Have Eyes. We know he did Crawl. In Oxygen, it's wasted. All of the gore is CGI, and there's one scene, and it's not even gross. It's just a CGI body with a hole in its head. It is a waste of Alexandre Aja. He should not have directed Oxygen.
And time. All right, some passion coming out there as he chugs down whatever the hell's in that can. We're going to go ahead and move. I hope it's not Four Loko for all our sakes. We're going to go ahead and move into the open discussion round. As a reminder, you guys have 4 minutes on the clock. Please try to give each other a chance to speak. I'd say try not to talk over each other, but I have a feeling how this will go. With that said, you guys have 4 minutes on the clock when the first competitor speaks.
I'm going to let Will talk first every single time. Go ahead, Will.
So you're saying this is a waste of his talent, but if he's the one coming in and doing this film, he's actually giving it his all. And for someone who's obviously not a stan of Alexander Aja, seeing this film was a complete revelation to me. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. The claustrophobia is a very known phobia. Fear of rats is a well-known phobia, and so that
was just tacked on though. That fear of rats, you can tell that was added in post. Like all that rat stuff makes no sense in the plot. It's a bunch of claustrophobia and then rats for no reason. Like that was really added in.
Yeah, and the ending of High Tension seems completely out of nowhere and tacked on too, just for added effect. And
I'm not going to force you to rewatch the movie, but if you watch the movie from the beginning, it makes total sense.
I did watch this movie several times in preparation for this, seeing if I missed something on rewatches, and sure enough, I did not. This film just makes no sense. I want it to feel any kind of tension. It's called High Tension, but I've seen all of these tropes used better in other films since this film. And
since the film, you're right. Since the film, because everything came after it. Saw came after it. Hostel came after it. Everything comes after High Tension. There's only a few films that really come before it, and those films are like Trouble Every Day and Irreversible come before it, but nobody talks about Trouble Every Day and Irreversible. They talk about High Tension being the cornerstone of the French extremity movement. And by the way, less is more, right? That's what you say. Less is more in Oxygen. The twists start like, she's on the thing. It's the last beacon of the human race. They can't tell her why she's on the ship. She's a clone. It's going to a planet that doesn't rotate. She has to divert the oxygen. She has to be 2%. Like every 30 seconds, there's a new twist. You can't say less is more. You're right. It would have been a better movie if we knew less about what was going on. They showed their entire hand. Like they go into excruciating detail in Oxygen, and there aren't 2 actors. There's like 5. There's the AI. There's her from the future. There's the police detective. There's the guy in the background. There's a ton of people. It's not just a 2-person play.
I said the majority of the time there was only 2 people is what I actually said. But you are right that there are multiple people in here, but we don't see their faces. We only hear their voices for a short period of time, and even though you do see these, and even though there are several twists, you do see, and you can even argue that you see these twists coming, but that doesn't change the fact that it impacts every single time. Okay, sure.
Did you figure out how to solve the problem halfway through the movie? Because I figured out how to solve the problem halfway through the movie. The second they show the big reveal when she can see out of the pod, and you see a ton of the pods are destroyed, but 127 of them aren't active. Didn't it dawn on you? Well, that's all wasted oxygen. She could take that oxygen. Like, however, the script is so poor. 40 minutes go by before this freaking genius figures that out. It doesn't make any sense to me.
So what you're saying is that that this genius, who really, if you think about it, isn't technically the genius. She's the clone of the genius. So she doesn't even realize that she is this medical genius until later on down the line.
No, she finds out halfway through the movie.
But the problem is that she is also in a panic scenario. She is in a heightened situation of panic. And so is everyone thinking with all of their gray matter in a time of situational panic? Absolutely not. Whereas with
I would agree, but she calms herself down so many times. Like she does a lot of brilliant things, like eventually. But she's not only in a panic once or twice. High Tension, that girl is in a panic the entire movie. And the other girl's in a panic the entire movie.
Which doesn't make sense because she's the one causing the panic, and the ending is just completely ruined.
And time. All right, we're going to go back into the 1-minute closings. Will, you are going to be up first for that, so the timer will start when you begin speaking.
how much you like High Tension, I do feel kind of is going to depend on if you really, if you really like your gore and you don't care about not, for lack of a better term, nonsensical endings. The ending of High Tension doesn't make sense. Okay, so we're supposed to be scared of schizophrenics now, so she's supposed to go into this murderous panic because she's in love with her friend. Nothing after that big reveal, none of the film makes sense, and upon rewatchings, it hold up. Whereas with Oxygen, she is in this panic state, and she is taking us along with her. Yes, we do see rats that are quote unquote tacked on, but even so, it still comes out of nowhere, and you don't know if they're real or not. We don't even know that this is in a space pod until about halfway through the movie. So we're still along with the ride. We're still going along with this. It's the reason why films like Buried work so well, where we're going on a ride with this person until the very thrilling conclusion.
And time. All right, John, back over to you, sir. You have the final minute of the round.
So glad Will mentioned Buried. Buried, Gravity. Oxygen is a Netflix movie that's derivative of better movies that came before it. The script, I don't want to say it sucks, but it embraces sucking. Like there are flaws in the script are apparent. Anybody who knows anything about movies can predict everything that's going to happen halfway through this movie. High Tension, if it is your first time watching that movie, you will have no idea what is going on. It is purposefully confusing, and it is purposefully at the end revealed that she is mentally ill. That way, when you go back and rewatch it, everything makes perfect sense. Will hung his hat saying less is more. I defy you to watch Oxygen. Keep track how many twists they throw at you in the last hour and 10 minutes of that movie. Less is more. There were fewer twists in movies. M. Night Shyamalan has fewer twists in his entire library of directorial views than you'll see in Oxygen. Alexandra Ha is the only good thing about Oxygen. He saved that fucking movie. High Tension is better, though.
And time. All right. A very impassioned first argument there. I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys both in the back and bring in our judges. So we have just a couple of quick fact checks here about things connected to the round. The first thing is when talking about the cast of Oxygen, technically both of them are correct, I guess would be the best way to say it. When you check IMDb, the full cast list does contain 11 actors. However, over half of them are credited as just speaking voices in the film. However, and again, obviously this is a subjective bit of research, but when you go to something like Wikipedia, which often only synthesizes the cast down to its main players or major supporting characters, only 3 characters are listed on that cast list. Melanie Laurent as the lead character, Matayu Almeric as Milo, the AI, and Malik Zidi as Leo Ferguson. So there are arguably 3 lead characters in the film. So they are both correct to that extent. The other thing is when talking about the involvement in the film, Alexandre Aja was a replacement director for Oxygen. However, he was attached as a producer long before he took over as a director. A newer director was supposed to direct when they stepped off the project. Aja took over to direct so that it would not fall apart. But he was involved prior to becoming a director. With that said, Zach, I'm going to go to you. Based off the argument said, who gets the point and what was the main thing?
For me, I'm going with John on this one, and more for the reason of he was able to give a lot of good reasons for his movie while also having a lot of great counters, especially the whole less is more thing that Will came up with. And for all those reasons, I'm going with John.
All right, and then Alejandro, down to you.
Yeah, this one was pretty neck and neck for me going forward. I think that I'm also going to go with John. If for no other reason that Will backpedaled a whole lot with like the whole 2 actors thing. Like there were only 2 actors. Oh, wait, no, I only said that was for most of the time. Less is more than. No, there needs to be more twists and turns. But also John gave examples of like how High Tension created the way for like Raw and Martyrs and The Hills Have Eyes and Saw and Hostel. So for all those points, I'm going with John on that one.
All right. Henry, welcome to the match, sir. You sit there like somebody who's either going to fuck me or murder me. I think those are the same thing. We will
not in that order.
In that order? Oh, great. Well,
not in that order.
Okay, good. So we'll hear your opinions in the next round as we go ahead and put you guys in the back. and bring the competitors in. We'll go ahead and move on to question number 2. And yeah, as was spoiled earlier, someone had to watch a horror film and the other person had to watch a rom-com. So how do we go about getting a rom-com in here? Well, horror, I picked a director, Alexandre Aja, whose name I'm apparently saying wrong, but I'm going to keep saying it like the belligerent asshole I am. And rom-com. Who's in rom-coms? Question is, what is the best film with Hugh Grant of the 1990s? Specifically, a decade that's full of cheesy shit, I am sure. Well before he ever made his way into films like The Gentleman, where he's entertaining. We will talk about his earlier work. With that said, John, you are up first this time around, sir. So I will go ahead and give you the timer. It will start ticking when you begin speaking.
I took this question pretty literally. Just a film Hugh Grant is in. I wanted to avoid all the rom-coms because really Hugh Grant just plays the same stuttering jackass in every rom-com in the 90s, but he does appear in The Remains of the Day, which is a fantastic period piece. Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson are brilliant in this movie about a British manor, about a man, a British lord who is a Nazi sympathizer right before World War II. So many themes are tackled in this movie. The honor, the duty of being a butler and how important it is and how you can dedicate your life to a person. There's themes of anti-Semitism. There's themes of like the British politics of the time, like Winston Churchill's politics of the time. Along with that, there is a tense, sad love story between Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson. They barely touch in this movie. I am not a period piece guy. I am not a romance guy. I am not a British guy. But The Remains of the Day, with his 8 Oscar nominations, is a fantastic movie.
And time. And there goes our UK audience and Joe Fairley. With that said, Will, I'm going to go over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So as profitable as romantic comedies are, they do get a load of shit for being romantic comedies, for being these sappy little pieces. And Hugh Grant being, starring in so many of them definitely gets a lot of shit. And a lot of the stuff that he did in the 90s was just sappy romantic comedies. But I picked the one that really kind of exemplified what modern honest romance was, and so I picked 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Yes, this movie is very comedic. It's very silly. It's almost bordering on sci-fi, with this beautiful woman played by Annie MacDowell falling even in lust with Hugh Grant, let alone in love with him. But it is really just an honest look at what romance should.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and go back over to John. 2 minutes on the clock when ready.
I couldn't even write that down. That Will, with a straight fucking face, said borders on sci-fi. The title of 4 Weddings and a Funeral should be like, Marriage Doesn't Fucking Matter, Be a Piece of Shit. Both leads in that movie are pieces of shit. Carrie's a piece of shit, and whatever the fuck Hugh Grant's character's name is, a piece of shit. Like, they sleep together once, right? Then they get together again. She's engaged at that point in time. She sends her old yellow-toothed Scottish husband off in a cab, and then sleeps with Hugh Grant again, and then proceeds to lead him on the entire movie to the point that she dissolves her wedding, fucks up his wedding, and this is a great romantic comedy. Oh, holy shit, I feel so... I've been married for 20 years. If I showed my wife this movie, she'd probably punch me in my goddamn face. I understand there's good performances in 4 Weddings. Don't get me wrong. When they're shitting on the sanctity of marriage, it's a great movie. Like, they're doing it in a great way. But that movie totally it's embarrassing. Like, you're hanging your comedy on Rowan Atkinson and his dated bullshit comedy where he's a priest that doesn't know anything about conducting a wedding. Like, whoa, how many times I laughed during 4 Weddings and a Funeral? 0 times. I laughed 0 times. I laughed more during The Remains of the Day. honestly, it's really sad that an American director, James Ivory, can direct a British movie better than Mike Newell, who's a British person, can direct a British movie. That's sad. James Ivory was handed Kazuo Ishigiro's novel, and he knocked it out of the goddamn park. Like everything in Remains of the Day. The scene when Anthony Hopkins' father dies, and he is dying, and he is so duty-bound to being a butler to an anti-Semitic, Nazi-sympathizing piece of shit that he's not even there when his father dies. He barely spends 2 seconds. He has Emma Thompson's character close his father's eyes. It's fucking heartbreaking.
And time. All right, Will, back over to you, sir. 2 minutes on the clock.
So the one thing that Richard Curtis, who wrote Four Weddings and a Funeral, does really well is he does not make perfect characters. And John's right that both Hugh Grant's character and Annie McDowell's character do kind of take turns dissolving relationships just to try and be with each other. That's not, sure, on paper that's not great, but then you look at their chemistry, you look at their feelings towards each other. They truly want to be with each other. They will, they want to move heaven and earth to be with each other. And when they can't, they try and move on until they realize, nope, we can't do this. We need to be with each other. But that doesn't mean that the film does not have hilarious moments. Watching her talk about her bizarre sexual history with very, very like borderline prudish Hugh Grant is absolutely great. The tension between them is just palpable from moment one. Watching everyone around them fall in love, fall out of love, and everything around them is wonderful to watch. Remains of the Day would have been a great 90 to 1 minute, 100-minute film had things just tightened up a little bit. But you have these great set pieces, we have these great performances just mired down with just slow pace, with just clunky dialogue. You have great, you do have great performances, sure, but by the time that you're done with the film, if you've even managed to stay awake during that time period, then you're left feeling, okay, well, that was an experience. Yes, okay, great. He's a Nazi sympathizer. We should have that. That almost felt like a complete tack on in the movie. Everything that goes on in Remains of the Day is just slow and over and just over in the blink.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will restart once again when the first person speaks.
Go ahead, Will.
So if anything, both of these films really exemplify the fact that we have people who know what they want, but are mired down by other choices.
I agree.
The difference is that with Remains of the Day, he was given so many choices to just try and be happy, but he chooses to be honor bound. He chooses to be bound to this Nazi sympathizer and look the other way and not care about who he hurts along the way until it's too late, until everything.
I would argue no one really gets hurt. It's more just missed opportunities. And he's like, as you see, like his father was a butler for 54 years. He's a butler. It's a period piece where these men and these women, like the class system in England, and they just dedicate their lives to people. And it's the fact that like the man he has dedicated his life to is making a horrible decision that he recants on his deathbed. Like these are real issues. This isn't just like, hey, I married a yellow-toothed Scottish fucking ugly guy and I'm going to fuck you instead. Like this is like real life. Like it's World War II. And the fact that like people like Lord Darlington ruined England. Like Hugh Grant's character in Remains of the Day fucking dies because of Lord Darlington. He dies.
And Hugh Grant's character is one of the only, like, has one of the best story arcs in the film that's completely unresolved, because we have to worry about this will we won't we with Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson. And
you know it's a
just
won't we.
boring.
You know it's a won't we the whole. There's no will we won't we. You know it's a won't we the whole time. Anthony Hopkins' character is incapable.
And there is still better ways of showing that than what they did. They could have easily cut a clean half hour to 45 minutes at minimum out of this movie, tightened things up, and you would have still gotten more tension.
You need every second of the Remains of the Day. You need to see you need to see how deep Lord Darlington is, and you need to see how like pious freaking Christopher Reeve's character is. Crazily enough, Christopher Reeve kills it in that movie too. But going to Four Weddings and a Funeral, that movie is just really, it's too neat. Like every character in the movie, every single character in the final montage, they find somebody. Like except for maybe Henrietta, because I don't know if that picture of her and Prince Charles is photoshopped, but everybody finds somebody. Even the gay couple where the guy's has a heart attack, he finds somebody. It's too neat. Like 40s Reels is a neat movie. And then of course you get your stereotypical Hugh Grant stutters for 5 minutes. Like, come on, dude. Like they cashed in. It was a cash in. 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah, but if you want to talk
also
about
3 Weddings and a Funeral.
If you want to talk about how influential High Tension is, this is just as influential in terms of.
I'm going to concede that point.
Yeah, this 4 Weddings and a Funeral is absolutely just the pinnacle of not only Hugh Grant's career, but Richard Curtis's career, who eventually went on to do films like Notting Hill, like Love Actually.
These are great points. This is Hugh Grant's best romantic comedy. I guarantee it. However, romantic comedies are like lowbrow, and Remains of the Day is a Kazuo Ishiguro adaptation that annihilates 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Like it is important.
It would have annihilated it had it actually had more tension. Had it actually been more tension.
He sends 2 Jewish girls to their death. He's like, hey,
he doesn't send
2 Jewish girls. You can't work here anymore, and they lose track of them. They're dead.
And time. Somehow we managed to bring dead children back into this. All right.
Fully grown Jewish women.
All right, John, you are up first, sir. You have 1 minute on the closing. Time starts when you begin speaking.
The fact that we're comparing a literary Kazuo Ishiguro, who is a fantastic author, the adaptation of his work, we're comparing this to 4 Weddings and a Funeral is like borderline insulting. Remains of the Day is important. It's an important movie. It tells an important story about a subset of British people who dragged England into World War II, the bombing of Dresden, all the British people that died on the European mainland, Hugh Grant's character dying in Belgium. It is the fault of people like Lord Darlington. I'm not going to trivialize the Remains of the Day by even saying that 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which is technically 2 weddings and 1 funeral if you watch the movie, is on the same level. It is the same old Hugh Grant stutters with his buck teeth for like an hour and a half that you've seen 10,000 times. Is it the best Hugh Grant romantic comedy? Yeah, I'm going to grant that. Did Michael Curtis write a great movie? Yeah, I'm going to grant that. It's dog shit.
And time. All right, we're going to go back over to Will. Final minute.
So all of the plot points that he talked about in Remains of the Day are good. I wish they would have been fleshed out. I wish we would have seen more of that. I wish we would have seen more of the behind the scenes and how it ties to the war. I wish we would have seen how, we would have been there when we see Hugh Grant, Hugh Grant's reporter character goes to the war and eventually dies. These are interesting parts of the film that get mired down by just by everyday by day-to-day butlery. That's all we get half the times is butlery. It's interesting to watch because it's Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins can stand there reading a box of cereal and it would be interesting, but it doesn't make the film good. Whereas 4 Weddings and a Funeral is engaging. it makes you think about modern romance. It makes you think about your own relationships with your family and your loved ones and everything. It's more than just a trivial little Hugh Grant rom-com. It is so much more than that, because Richard Curtis always does more than that.
And time. All right. Another great round, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put you both in the back, and I will bring our judges in for this round. There's not a lot to really fact check here. Everything they said was pretty much on point. So I'm going to go up to Alejandro to start it off. Who gets the vote, and what was the main selling point?
This one was a little more one-sided, but this time I went with Will. His whole point about being a modern romance and having great chemistry with both of the main characters, being a legitimate comedy with genuine romance brought into it, I thought was great. He had a great spiel about how Notting Hill was going to follow this, and if John hadn't cut him off, we'd have gotten some more great points. But I probably was going to vote for Will anyway, because he said Rowan Atkinson was bullshit, and how fucking dare you.
Hey, man, whatever sells you, sells you. Henry, down to you, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
So this question's similar to the first one, where I haven't seen either of those movies, so I was literally just listening to the arguments and kind of, getting an idea of which movie is better, and whether it's Hugh Grant specific or just better as a film, however they approach it. And neither of them really sold me on either of the movies. It's one of those things where it's like, it is what it is. Honestly, Will's closing is what got me at the end. I felt like he did a good job at the end of closing, just everything. I wish that John's film was more fleshed out and it was too long and all that stuff, and which is ironic because John earlier said that everything in his film is needed. So whether it's true or not, I don't know, but based on the arguments, Will sold me with the the fleshed out part of his movie, and then his movie's good for the romance and all that stuff. So Will, barely.
Absolutely. The only thing factually I took from that argument was that Anthony Hopkins is so good he could read cereal box, and he probably still would have won that Oscar over Chadwick. Too soon? Too soon? All right, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in the back, and we will move on to question number 3. Question number 3, a question which these two have prepped and submitted answers for, but a question that I put no work into. This is a viewer-submitted question submitted to us by a viewer, player, or judge of the show. This is normally where I do a spiel about how you can submit questions, but this will be the first time I'll say it publicly on a video. We are no longer taking submissions. I have over 50 of them in the bank, and that's not counting on the matches that are waiting to be recorded. We have enough to last us for like a year, probably.
I submitted none, so I submitted 0.
That is true. You have submitted 0.
You're welcome.
That is the truth. So this is submitted to us. The person who did submit this question is Mr. Austin Howell, and the question is, which Avenger in the MCU is the least useful to the team? A very interesting question indeed. The first question these competitors have to tackle is, who the fuck counts as an Avenger? And then they have to tackle who is actually the least useful. Let's see what they came up with. Will, I'm going to go over to you first, sir, so I'll give you the timer back, and it will start ticking when you begin speaking.
So this is a question that always gets bandied about amongst comic book nerds, and there always seems to be one obvious answer. So that's why I didn't go with the obvious answer, because I actually wanted to think about this. And after thinking about it, I realized for me, there's actually one big obvious choice, and that's actually Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. Now, the Hulk is great when he's kicking ass, when he's just fighting alongside the Avengers, but the problem is he is too much of a loose cannon. He is easily triggered, he is easily manipulated. When the fight against Thanos gets too real, the Hulk goes inside of him, and he's left arguing with the Hulk rather than fighting. And when they need him the most, half the times, either he's flying off somewhere else or flying off planet. That's not a useful character at all.
In time. Bruce Banner wasn't the only thing the Hulk went inside of recently. Ayo! Spoiler for She-Hulk. John, I'm going to go over to you, sir. Time starts when you begin speaking for your opening minute.
Will kind of alluded to like what the obvious answer is. And the reason why there's an obvious answer is because it's the fucking obvious answer. Let me give you Hawkeye's resume throughout the MCU. Hawkeye is 0 for the universe against Natasha Romanoff. She beats the shit out of Clint Barton every single time. Everything is on the line. Even when it comes to saving the entirety of the human race and the races of all the races in the entire universe, Clint Barton gets his ass kicked by Natasha Romanoff. He is the reason why Quicksilver is dead. He is the first person Loki turns. Like, he works against the Avengers for an entirety of a film. Not to mention the fact that he becomes Ronin, and because it causes a bunch of garbage, attacking a bunch of Yakuza and cartels, bringing heat upon himself, a man with a family that is a liability, not to mention in Civil War, he was on the losing side.
And time. All right. We have the Hulk versus Hawkeye. Will, back over to you, sir.
So John brings up some very interesting scenarios where Hawkeye is supposedly useless. Well, yeah, Quicksilver might be dead because he was protecting Hawkeye, because Hawkeye was protecting a civilian. Okay, sure. Hawkeye is also the reason why Scarlet Witch became an Avenger. It was his words, not his actions, his words, that convinced her to be on the Avengers. He was able to defeat Vision to get Wanda out of her home prison. He can hit targets not even by looking at them. He is extremely strong. He is extremely fast. That is not a useless character. And of all the people in Age of Ultron that got mind manipulated by Wanda, who was the one person who didn't? Hawkeye. Who was the person who did get mind fucked and cause the most damage? Bruce Banner. He has too much of a hair trigger. Why? Because he's always angry. And you can look at all the other things. He can easily exist with the anger. He can easily find the balance. Other people have found the balance and managed to be useful, but he chooses to go angry and go off and do all these other things. And when he's even as Bruce Banner, he is too paranoid about his teammates in the Avengers. He is always doing research against him, but the thing is that the Avengers don't even trust him either, because they have all these countermeasures to protect them against him. Whether you see it in the Avengers or Age of Ultron, they have multiple countermeasures against him. That is not someone that they obviously want on the team. That's why he is more useless.
And time. All right, John, back over to you.
I'd like to thank Will for conceding that Hawkeye is responsible for everything you see in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, because if Scarlet Witch is not an Avenger, none of that shit happens. She doesn't have the access to the same stuff. She just becomes some poor Sokovian lady with a dead brother if she's not brought into the Avengers. So thank you, Hawkeye, for causing the entire Phase 5 of the MCU. If you're really responsible for bringing her into the Avengers, you're responsible for Kang and all this shit that's coming. That's on Clint Barton, 100%. Secondly, the Hulk, when he's just Bruce Banner as a human, is way more valuable than Clint Barton at his height. Bruce Banner has 7 PhDs. Bruce Banner, all these countermeasures that you talk about, where Bruce Banner, they have countermeasures against the Hulk. Tony Stark, and guess who? Bruce Banner designed the Hulkbuster armor. You know who else wore the Hulkbuster armor? Bruce Banner wore the Hulkbuster armor. Bruce Banner, when he's in Bruce Banner form, knows his flaws and helps the Avengers countermeasure against himself. And need I remind everybody and the judges, who is the only fucking Avenger that was able to withstand the snap from the Infinity Gauntlet? Who was wearing the goddamn gauntlet? Was it Iron Man? Oh no, it killed Iron Man. Was it anybody? No, it was the Hulk. The Hulk could withstand the snap from the Infinity Gauntlet. He survived. The reason why the blip was reversed was because of Bruce fucking Banner. We won Endgame. We won the Infinity War because of Bruce Banner. Nobody else was wearing that gauntlet. Nobody else did that. That was Bruce Banner the entire time. Need I remind you, in the Avengers, he takes out the Leviathan by himself. Your boy Loki, who turned your boy Hawkeye in 5 seconds, Hulk beats the living shit out of him in the Avengers. And in Ragnarok, he may have had a little help, but Hulk bests Thor. So if Hulk's better than Thor, then he's not the worst Avenger.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when, well, I'd say the first competitor speaks, but John's just probably going to make Will do it again. So I guess, Will, when you're ready.
So the question is not who is the worst Avenger. It is who is the Avenger in the MCU who is the least useful to the team. Yes, you are right, Bruce. But Bruce has all these PhDs. Yes, he is very smart, but all of the great things that he does is outside of the Avengers. Outside of all these.
Did the snap happen in an Avengers movie? That was in Endgame, right? It was Avengers.
Yeah, but
and who was wearing the gauntlet?
And who was wearing the glove when the snap occurred and Thanos.
The real snap that fixed everything, not the snap that killed Thanos. Who snapped first?
Yeah. Do we know who? Do we know that? Do we know that Captain Marvel?
And who survived the snap? Did that snap kill Stark? It killed him, right?
Yeah.
So would you say he's less useful than the Hulk then? Because the Hulk could probably snap again. He has another arm. He could probably snap with this hand. He could have snapped twice. Tony Stark snapped once and died.
Cool. We're not talking about Tony Stark, are we?
But you're saying who's the least useful. So in that sense, Tony Stark is less useful. So if he's less useful, Hulk is more useful.
So great. He showed that he could be useful right when in a pressure situation once.
The one time that mattered and resolved what? 13 years of movies? Yeah, I'll take that. What did Hawkeye do? He hugged the glove and ran like LaDainian Tomlinson through a tunnel. Thanks, Clint.
Yeah, and when
a real man put that glove on and saved the universe.
And think of how this mortal man, with all the injuries that he had, was still able to pull himself out of all of that wreckage, holding the glove, and be able to do that. That is not a useful. That's not a useful.
And he wasn't supposed to be there because Natasha Romanoff, who apparently is more useful because she could beat the shit out of him, because Clint wanted to kill himself, leaving his family behind. Let me mind you, his family that's so goddamn important that Nick Fury had to create a safe house for him. He was willing to sacrifice all that, but he let Natasha Romanoff beat the shit out of him.
Oh, you mean the family that got snapped away, and he went into a little bit of a mania. Because he was trying to find how to get his family back. Ronin liability.
Yeah. So, but honestly, I'm glad that if you want to say Hawkeye is the second most useful because he got the glove to the man that fixed everything, Bruce Banner, I will concede that point. But Hulk is the man. All these liabilities you're talking about, Bruce Banner worked diligently.
You want to talk about
he nursed Tony Stark back to health, and he and Tony Stark made contingencies. He was working against himself. He's
okay. He's
also the most useful.
John, now it's my turn. You want to talk about liability? The Hulk is always liability. He's the reason for the Sokovia Accords, which caused everything to begin with. Which really, if you want to talk about something that's going to set off
the non-combined Hulk,
you got your time to talk. Now it's my turn. He was mind controlled, caused a bunch of shit in Sokovia, and then flew off planet. Didn't have to deal with any of that shit. So
by your logic, that's a smart decision. If he's a liability, him leaving, that's a smart decision. If he's a liability, him leaving was the best thing he can do. He helped create the Hulk.
And it's not useful. But he's not useful to. But he is not. He's not being useful at all to mend the situation. Who is there? Hawkeye. And saying that Hawkeye is responsible for Natasha going off and everything that happened.
You said he brought her in.
I said I brought her into the Avengers. I never said that she was. I never said that he was responsible for her snapping.
She has no access to the Darkhold if she's not an Avenger. She's just a weeping, brotherless in Sokovia.
All right, we have 1 minute left on the round for each competitor. Will, you will get that time first. It'll start when you begin speaking.
If you want to blame anyone for Natasha getting the hold of that book, it's Doctor Strange, not Clint. Clint brought her in the Avengers, got her away from Ultron. He is the only one who was able to survive her, the only one who was able to not be mind fucked by her and subdue her. Hulk Hulk causes a bunch of damage and then runs off and goes play. That's not a useful member of the team. That's an asshole. He's never taking responsibility for himself. Yeah, okay, Bruce created these countermeasures, but why would he need the countermeasures at all if he could actually control himself? Anyone who can control himself is not a useful part of the team if you can't be a team player. Hawkeye is a team player. He's always trying to do everything he can to save the day as a mortal man against gods.
Time. All right, and then John, back over to you. Final minute.
We're ignoring this current incantation of Bruce Banner where he has the Hulk and Bruce Banner personas combined. All of the problems Will is talking about are resolved. It's Hulk's strength, Hulk's stamina, Hulk's invulnerability with Bruce Banner's persona. We don't have that unpredictability anymore. It's a perfect character arc. Now he is the most useful Avenger. Need I remind you, we sat through every single goddamn movie of the Infinity Saga for who to resolve the issue? Bruce Banner. Will has already conceded that the reason why Natasha Romanoff, that's why Wanda Maximoff consorts with the Avengers at all is because of Clint Barton. Anything that Wanda Maximoff does in WandaVision, anything she does in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is a direct result of everything Clint Barton has done. If you hold Clint Barton responsible for that and the death of her fucking brother, he is clearly the least useful Avenger, aside from the fact that he's the third best human on the team behind Falcon
and time. All right. Well, if it wasn't gone before, the whole John screaming thing is certainly out the window. We're going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back and bring our judges on screen. I didn't do any fact checking that round because I just wanted to enjoy what was happening. Henry, you were like a little cheerleader in the background. So who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
I want to commend Will for not taking the bait of John continuously having him like, yeah, did you do that? Did you do that? And Will's like, shut the fuck up. I don't care. Let's talk about something else. So I commend him for that because John tried to bait him into wasting a lot of time talking about that. John was real close to combating the point of his whole thing. He's talking about, Wanda, Clint caused Wanda, blah, blah, but at no point did he mention Vision, which Vision's death and all that stuff is really the reason that turned her evil. And since he didn't mention the Vision stuff, it kind of was a stretch, really felt like a stretch of that point. So honestly, I had Will by a lot. I really felt like the liability of Hulk was one of those things that was just, it made more sense. And all the stuff that John said as a negative towards Hawkeye, whatever, sure you think that, but even bringing up the Ronin stuff and how that has really nothing to do with the Avengers, especially that's during the snap. So I really didn't use that as a positive for that. So I had Will by a lot. Hulk was more of a least useful to the team.
All right. Zach, down to you. Who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
I actually think that Will had the better round, and more because he gave more reasons against Hulk, more about being easily manipulated, not being able to control his anger, and with the whole Sokovia thing, causing all the damage and then just running away. So for all of those, that's why I think Will had the better round.
All right, judges, thank you guys so much. I'll go ahead and put you guys in the back as we will move on to question number 4. It's not often that I get the immediate want to hop into a fight and start debating somebody because, quite frankly, I don't care. But, I mean, bro, how can you diss Hawkeye? He's the only Avenger that's ever gone on national television and covered Ed Sheeran on Jimmy Fallon, okay? That easily, for that, he's like at least 4th most useful because he can sing. It's a great distraction. With that said, we're going to move on to... John wants to strangle me now, but with that said, we're going to move on to the 4th question.
I love you.
You said that with all the conviction of my father. We're going to move on to question number 4. And this question, well, I just killed the judges backstage. Speaking of somebody who was killing it, Seth Rogen was killing it in the 2000s. The man was on the hot button of comedy. He was helping write, starring, then directing all of the top films that came out in the 2000s, whether it be partnering with the likes of Judd Apatow or going on to work on his own stuff. He had a hell of a decade. So the question at hand is, what is the best Seth Rogen film of the 2000s? And we're going to go ahead and throw it over to John this time to start the question out. The timer will start back up when it begins, or when you begin, John, excuse me.
I was a teenager once. Everyone here, Will was a teenager once. Aaron was a teenager once. All the judges backstage were a teenager once. Seth Rogen co-wrote a fantastic film called Superbad. He also was in it a little bit, playing a cop. The memes alone that this movie has generated eclipse any other movie Seth Rogen has ever been involved with. I've seen kids that could not have been old enough to have watched this movie wearing McLovin ID t-shirts. Superbad is iconic. Superbad is funny. Superbad is relatable. I had friends in high school. I am not friends with them anymore. When I went to college, I fell out of touch with them. The story between Seth and Evan it's so relatable to everybody. So many great comedic performances. Bill Hader, Seth Rogen, Mintz Plasse, Sarah, Jonah Hill, Emma Stone. Like, it just goes on in this movie. And did I mention that Seth wrote this movie? It's like the perfect combination of lowbrow and highbrow humor. Everyone loves Superbad.
And time. All right, Will, over to you.
For Seth Rogen in the 2000s, there were 3 obvious choices, and it was really hard not choosing. It was really hard trying to choose which one I wanted to go with. But I ultimately went with Knocked Up for one specific reason. I love the way that Judd Apatow knows how to take the modern romantic comedy and kind of turn it on its head while still celebrating modern romance at the same time in a very interesting cycle. Seth Rogen's character is just this stoner loser, illegal alien of all things, and he in one night manages to get this knockout woman and knock her up, and the foibles of how he all of a sudden, as a loser, needs to learn how to grow the fuck up and be a responsible human being is not only more relatable than Superbad, but it's far more compelling as an adult, and that's why this gets the slight edge.
And time. All right, so we have the Battle of Superbad, in which Seth Rogen plays a shitty cop, a role he'd reprise and observe and report, versus Knocked Up, a movie in which Seth Rogen plays an illegal alien, a role he'd reprise in Paul. With that said, we're going to go back over to John. Time starts when you begin speaking. 2 minutes.
Knocked Up is really only relatable if you've knocked up a woman that you aren't married to. So I know Will's full of shit. I would be full of shit if I said that. Basically, there's no central story to Knocked Up. Knocked Up is literally like you hear the words, yeah, knocked up. It's an accidental pregnancy. Judd Apatow came under huge fire for this movie. It is a sexist garbage movie where women are portrayed as shrews that hate fun, and men like Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen are just like, they're just regular dudes just hanging out here. We're gonna do mushrooms and fucking have fun, and these bitches just, they ruin our fun. Those sexist tropes are garbage, and Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen were dragged through the mud for having that thing. And the fact that Katherine Heigl went along with it and played a wooden, one-dimensional character who's like, I'm just a television personality. Katherine Heigl drags that movie down. Judd Apatow, Seth Rogen came under huge fire for that movie. On the other hand, you have Superbad. I defy anyone to tell me they are still friends with every single kid they were friends with in high school. It is a story about growing up and growing apart and the pains we feel as young men growing apart from these people we thought would be our best friends forever. Superbad, as hysterical as it is, and it is 20 times more hysterical than Knocked Up. The memes, like I said, from Superbad alone, like you can quote probably 10, 20 lines from Superbad. I defy you to quote more than 5 from Knocked Up. It is a much better written movie. It is a much better directed movie. It is a much better acted movie. It's iconic. Knocked Up, I don't remember anything other than the fact that it's Knocked Up and Judd Apatow is a misogynist. I remember those things. Superbad, I remember McLovin. I remember, the Goldschlager. I remember, Bill Hader and Seth Rogen playing crazy cops. I remember that. I remember, Michael Cera carrying Jonah Hill. I remember the drunk girl saying she's going to give Michael Cera a blowy. It's all stuff I had.
And time. All right. Well, back over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Just because a movie is meme-worthy does not mean it's the better movie. Just because it has a lot of one-liners doesn't mean that it's better written. A lot of Superbad meanders. The whole sequence of Jonah Hill's character drawing dicks goes on for far too long, and it has no bearing to the plot of the movie whatsoever. It's just a reason for, oh, I hate this person because of this. And it's never brought up again, except for the end where we see a bunch of dick pictures and great, wonderful. Knocked Up does more, is more about more than just, oh, well, I'm going to be a father and I'm going to be thrust into fatherhood. No, it's more than that. It's about modern relationships, whether it be your friends. You want to talk about friends, you want to talk about struggles with friends and growing apart from them. Seth Rogen does that with 4 adult men that he lives with. He realizes that these people around him may not be the people that are going to help him in his time of need. And so he has to move away from them and find another job and, be the man that he wants to be. You want to talk, Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann's relationship. You want to talk about, Leslie Mann, doesn't love fun? No, it's not the fact that she doesn't love fun. It's the fact that Paul Rudd is a selfish asshole who goes off and does his own things and not tells her while she's stuck home with the kids. As someone who is a father, I know that doesn't fly. They need to be having joint time with the kids. They need to need to be switching off. And that's not what Paul Rudd's doing. Leslie Mann is a stressed out mother, and so she is just at her wit's end. And that's what Katherine Heigl is afraid of being. So no, these are not one-dimensional characters. These are characters relatable.
All right, so we are going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when the first person speaks.
The most interesting part about Superbad is the fact that we get to see Seth and Evan have that moment at the end where they realize that they're going to be going off to different colleges and they're going to potentially be growing apart and the trials and tribulations of there. But it takes almost the entire movie to even get there. They're just having these wacky little adventures until we get to the heart of it. Booksmart.
So it's the opposite of Oxygen because it actually pays off at the end. Like it's a build up to a payoff. Like we as the audience understand that. We see that from the beginning because we know Fogel and Evan have that secret pact. And then at the end, Seth finally realizes that's going to happen. Whereas in Knocked Up, and you make some good points, but this is Will Cohen's analysis of Knocked Up. It is not the way it is presented in the movie. Literally dozens of analysts watched this movie and said this movie is misogynist. Leslie Mann's character acts that way. Paul Rudd's character acts that other way. Okay. Seth Rogen's character they act as they are chauvinists and these women are shrews. That's it. They are presented that way. They are presented that way. In retrospect, you can't take that back.
Yeah, and you would look at The Apartment, and The Apartment's done the same way, but that's still looked at as a classic movie still to this very day. So
The Apartment's actually funny, unlike Knocked Up. The Apartment's actually funny. So
I watched both these films on the same day. I laughed harder at Knocked Up than I ever did at Superbad. Superbad has its
you're gonna lie to all these people.
I'm not lying. Why would I lie? I have no
Superbad,
reason to lie.
Superbad is way funnier. If I cornered you in a party and I asked you to give me 10 quotes from Superbad, you could do it. If I asked you to give me 10 quotes from
how many times have I seen Super?
You could do it. First of all,
no, I really can't.
Superbad is iconic. Superbad has merch. Superbad spawned an entire new era of teen comedies. Knocked Up is just another Judd Apatow vehicle where Judd Apatow came under fire from the media for portraying men and women in a weird, stereotypical way.
And yet he is still employed, and he's still able
Roman Polanski is still employed.
I mean, sure.
He has sex with children. So
great, wonderful. I'm definitely not taking the bait on that one.
You don't have
but
to.
The problem, but again, the thing is, John, is that sure, you analyze any film long enough, you're going to find some bad shit in there.
This isn't long enough. This was immediate. It was immediately panned.
And yet it still has a lot of rave critic reviews. It has great audience reviews.
Talented. I'm just saying the relationships between the characters. They are stereotypical. Katherine Heigl is wooden and a blank slate. Leslie Mann is a shrew. Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen are man children. It's embarrassing to both genders.
And yet, if you explore all the characters instead of just looking at analysis, you would actually see the reason why they're being portrayed this way and why they're acting this way. They're stressed. A lot of these people are just stressed out. They're stressed out. They're tired. And guess what? You're a parent. You know how stressful and tiring being a parent is. Being constantly on all the time. I
agree with that, but we're dealing with a minority situation.
But with Superbad, these kids just go through this entire thing with money. I don't know where they're getting, so it's hard for me to relate on that.
It's hard. The notion of Superbad. It's the notion of just growing apart. How they get there is irrelevant. It's the fact that there's friends and they're growing up and they're growing apart. That happens to every single person. I've never
including
outside of my marriage.
Yeah, the thing is that that aspect is shared in both films. So the thing is that in Knocked Up, you actually get to see a nice payoff. You get to see two people coming together rather than going apart.
All right, we have 1 minute left on the clock for both competitors. John, you are up first. The time starts when you begin speaking.
I would argue that Evan and Seth don't grow apart. At the end of the movie, yes, it is understood that they are going in their own different directions, but their bond is stronger. The scene where they say they love you is honestly, I wish I had said I love you to most of my friends in high school. I wish they would know how I felt about them right now. Every single one of us, all of us here have had that experience where we have friends that we think are going to be the end all be all, and we grow apart and we regret it. And that the beauty of Superbad is the fact that relationship is highlighted in the movie. Knocked Up is a minority situation. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there in this community that have born children out of wedlock, but it's not really relatable. And I really need to call attention to the fact of this specter that Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen and Paul Rudd were called onto the carpet for depicting these misogynist, stereotypical men. And then also the fact that Katherine Heigl has zero character in the movie, and Leslie Mann's character also is depicted as a shrew that hates fun. They were panned relentlessly.
And time. All right, Will, you have 1 minute left on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Yeah, if Heigl and Mann were, Mann's characters were supposed to hate fun, well, we constantly see them having fun with each other, and we constantly see them, we see them when they're able to go out, they're clubbing, they're laughing together, they're having intimate talks. No, that's not wooden. That is, there is a third dimension. Are they the main character? No, because Seth Rogen is the one taking the hero's journey. And so are all of these characters perfect in any stretch of the imagination? No. With Superbad, again, great memes, great merch. Just because it's absolutely quotable doesn't mean it is a better film. You could tell this film was written by 13-year-olds, and it was written by 13-year-olds. Evan and Seth were 13 when they wrote this script, and it absolutely shows. There's hardly any character development until the end. The ending comes out of nowhere, and it's great,
and
but
time.
It doesn't earn it.
All right, that is it for the round, guys. Another excellent debate. You guys have both done great tonight. I'm going to go ahead and sit you both in the back as I bring in our judges to move on to the deliberations. All right, so let's get into the two major fact checks that came from this round. The biggest one, of course, being the response to Knocked Up. Now, to say the movie was panned or heavily criticized would be an incorrect statement just based on critic consensus. With 252 reviews logged on Rotten Tomatoes, it did receive an 89% approval rating with an average score of 7.7 out of 10. However, John is correct in that when the movie did first come out, multiple major publications, including Slate, the LA Times, and A.O. Scott of the New York Times, criticized the film for potentially coming off as sexist for its portrayal of female characters. Filmmaker Mike White, best known for his work on films like School of Rock and the show Freaks and Geeks, also spoke publicly about his views on the film, saying that it came off as sexist. All of the leading players within the film have also spoken about it. Katherine Heigl, in an interview with Vanity Fair, said that she enjoyed working on the film but struggles to watch it, as she says the film does come off, to quote her, as a little sexist, claiming the film, quote, paints the women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. Apatow responded to Heigl's statements defending the film, saying that, yes, the film does come off as sexist at times, specifically in its male characters. But that's the point. It's about immature people who are afraid of women and relationships and are learning to grow up. Seth Rogen himself, while being interviewed by by Howard Stern, also responded to Heigl's quote, specifically another quote about her talking about the movie not doing anything to empower women. He referenced another one of her works in The Ugly Truth, stating, "I hear there's a scene where she's wearing underwear with a vibrator in it. So I'd have to see if that's uplifting for women as well." He then went on to say, "You would think at some point I'd get a call saying she was sorry, that she was tired, and then that call never comes. However, since the two have both publicly said that they have spoken and are on good terms, but this was all publicly out there." The other big one is at the end, it was thrown in there that Superbad was written when they were teenagers. That is actually 100% true. At what age they were when they wrote it is mostly unknown, but it is known that the script was written over the course of their teenage years. They were basically writing it as their kind of, I guess you would so to say, like a practice script or whatever, as you were writing as you're growing up based on the experiences as they were living them. As such, the writers, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, literally named the characters Seth and Evan. With that said, Zach, I'm going to go to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold it?
To me, I went with Will on this one for two things. One, I feel like his point about it being more relatable was definitely a positive for him. And I wish that John had given more counters against Knocked Up. It just kept saying about the whole shrew thing and the women not having fun. If there was more counters, I feel like he might have had a better argument in his case. That's why I went with Will.
Okay, and then Alejandro, down to you. Same question. Who gets your vote?
Yeah, I have to agree. I also went with Will. John just kept saying that the movie was iconic, but when it came time for him to give examples of what he remembered about the movie, he kind of tripped over himself. He kept saying that there were a lot of quick, witty one-liners and a lot of merch, but I think Will countered those perfectly by saying memes do not make a movie and one-liners does not necessarily make good writing. So, and of course, that mic drop at the end that it was written by a couple of 13-year-olds, I thought that was a perfect ending to it. So, yeah, Will gets my vote as well.
All right, judges, thank you for your guys' time tonight. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in the back because your winner by a final score of 3-1, the Virtuoso Will Cohen pulls out a big one here. Congratulations, sir. I think you can officially say with that record, 5-2 with one knockout, you are officially a top-end player. So congratulations, sir. It's quite a win streak you've put together. How are you feeling?
Honestly, this was not okay. Spoiler alert. As a smartass, when I submitted my bracket for this tournament, I did put myself as the victor for John. I didn't realize it was a vision board, but I honestly didn't think I honestly didn't think I was going to pull this one out. I thought he had me. I knew he was going to have me on the Alexander Aja question because he stands that guy. He has seen high tension so many fucking times that I knew that I was doing, that winning that round would have been great. That was a pipe dream. But then going 3 points in a row, especially with I had two contentious answers for those last two, and somehow I managed to pull out the victory. So I'm shocked, but uh, I know that I know I said this in my last match against Sean, that beating Sean was a statement. Beating the number 3 contestant, being the number 3 seed in this, beating a juggernaut as John, who has a huge record with debate in general, and me coming in as the number 11 seed and beating him, that's a statement unto itself. A statement I did not think I was going to make, but now that I've made it, I'm elated, surprised, and I'm both terrified and excited to see how things progress from here.
Well, absolutely. In terms of upload tomorrow, everybody, you guys will get to see who Will gets to play. Right now, we don't know, but Will, your next competitor, will be the winner of Joe Fairley, the number 2 seed, versus Noah McCausland, the number 10 seed. This is a matchup that was supposed to happen in our summer invitational, which we were also a part of. Amaru's entrance to that broke it up, but they have found a way to each other here. And this is a very similar case, right? This is a juggernaut of the tournament, or the person who beat the juggernaut of the tournament, which right now, all time for Joe Fairley, very small, very elite list. Henry Sanchez and Amaru Moses, both of whom are playing each other in December for the title. So if Noah joins that list, it's an elite group to be a part of. Do you have a preference between the two, or what are your thoughts?
Well, obviously I have a preference because Joe is Joe. Even on his even on his weaker days, Joe is still Joe. And so, just give me a rock and call me Sisyphus on that one. So obviously my preference would be to play Noah because I've beaten Noah before. In my very first debut in an exhibition, I beat Noah. But Noah is getting better, and so I think Noah and I can bring an energy that would be really entertaining to watch. But then again, Joe has his own very laid back energy, and me being a twitchy, coked up squirrel half the times, I think that would be entertaining to watch in a completely different aspect. Regardless of who I fight, this is not a situation I thought I was ever going to be in. Now I'm in there. I want to bring my S game and make this as entertaining for the fans as possible.
All right. Well, I respect it, and I look forward to seeing it. We will see you in a few weeks in the next round, sir, as I go ahead and sit you in the back and bring in John Maher. And, sir, even though your rookie season is over at this point, unfortunately, a hell of a one it is. 3-1 with that debut knockout win. Certainly still high up the rankings. That you had a 3-win streak prior to this loss, which will put yourself in good contention going in the next year for a good matchup. How are you feeling overall?
Will knows, I 99% of the time I agree with them, and this is part of the 99%. He should have lost. You're 100% right, Will. You definitely should have lost that match. But I'm fine. If I'm going to lose to somebody, it should be Will. I hope he fucking takes Henry and pulls his asshole out and then drags over his fucking head and shoves it down his throat. I hope that's what happens to in this, because Henry sabotaged this whole goddamn thing. Let's go.
I'm just putting it out there. If that ever does happen, we're setting up a Patreon. You can pay for that shit. That is premium paid content.
That is premium. That is Terrifier 2 level kills. Yeah,
that is absolutely will be the third one.
You need to prolapse his asshole and pull it over his head.
We're gonna be the Italian Terminator 2 to those films. That's what we're gonna be. No, so yeah, man. So again, overall, for coming in halfway through the year, the fact that you were able to establish yourself so quickly, you took out obviously that knockout win versus Richie at the start, and then right from there, you took on Austin, and then you took on Chris, both of whom, compared to you, are veteran players with much more experience, and you had very convincing wins in all 3 matches. Certainly some great fights tonight. Do you want to come back next year, or are you looking forward to potentially seeing anyone down the road? What's kind of the overall thought before we sign out for the year?
Yeah, I mean, sure. You know, it's really honestly a lot of things that people don't talk about in Battlegrounds is there's a lot of nuance. Like, you know, you got to really like know your audience. Like, it's very. I mean, I haven't had every judge me. Like, so I don't know. I really think if I had known how this match would have been judged, I might have come in a little different. I might have debated points a little differently. I thought I was making good points, but for the subjectivity of what's going on, I wasn't. So now I know more. So I'm happy. I'm happy to lose. I'm happy to lose to Will, and I'm happy to come back with the knowledge that if these guys judge again, I know better what their criteria is. I knew Henry's criteria, but I did not know Alejandro or Zachary's criteria. So it's good to know that now. So I will make a note, and when I come back, I will take that into account if they're here.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great having you. I look forward to having you back next year. We will see you then, sir. Till then, I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back and sign out for tonight, guys. A great match between these two competitors, but it is Will Cohen who, again, skill-wise, it is not that, but in a tournament where everyone has a seeded number, he once again pulls out the upset. He knocked out the number 6 seed, a former tournament finalist, and now he has taken out the number 3 seed. And it absolutely brilliant match on both parts. Both had some great arguments. But guys, that is going to do it for this episode of the Movie Battleground. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Always check the new stuff that we have coming up because we always have some great matches. As I said, last week we had Chad Webb versus Jay Burns and Austin Howell versus Alan Shepard. So if you want to know who the other 2 semifinalists are, go check out those matches. Tomorrow we have Joe Fairley versus Noah McCausland going up. Check that out. And we have some matches all as well. We are just 3 weeks away from the end of the season. There is still some great matches to go, but we are nearing the end, and it is an exciting time. But with that said, be sure to rate the video, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, stick around, as I said, for everything that we have coming. I want to thank John Maher for being here tonight. I want to congratulate Will Cohen on a great victory. I want to say thank you to my judges, Henry Sanchez, Zach Shelton, and Alejandro Hernandez for giving their time and helping us run this match. And on behalf of myself and everyone here at the Movie Battleground, my name is Aaron Knoll. We will see you next time. Take care, everybody.